It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Well, my friends, remember I told you May 21st is a very important day, and I know when it comes to primary elections, a lot of people don't get excited about the primaries, but it's something that we should really think about, really, because as I said, whoever we put in office affects our lives. You know, it may not affect us today, but some down the road it affects our lives. So it's important. And remember what I also said since 1994. Don't vote for people because someone says vote for her or him because they're nice people. Know who they are. Get to know who they are, and then make a valued decision. Okay, we have Rebecca Warren on the show today. Rebecca Warren's no stranger to the area. She was a district attorney in Montour County, and she is running for Superior Court. One of the 3 Republicans in Superior Court. So we'll find out about Rebecca today. And what about the Superior Court? Rebecca, thanks for coming on the Sam Lesante Show.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
I know, of course, you know, I'm very good friends with Judge Stevens. He does a TV show with us, and learned a little bit about, you know, how important, you know, Superior Court is, Supreme Court, etc. But let's talk about Rebecca Warren, being that you are a native of this area. First of all, I applaud anyone who's running for office.
Thank you. It's a lot of work.
Oh, it is a lot of work. And so sometimes I think they're nuts, you know, these people are crazy. But we need them, okay? Tell me about you. Tell me your background, you know, where you went to school, college, so I know who you are.
Okay, great. Well, as you noted, I'm a native of this area, so I grew up in the greater Hazleton area. I went to MMI Preparatory School, which was a wonderful school and gave me a great education. My father worked at Bloomsburg University, so I went to college there. And I initially wanted to be a veterinarian.
Is that right? Well, I could use you. Oh, I have a good veterinarian, but
sorry, I didn't pursue that.
Yeah.
I had a college.
Why a veterinarian? And then
I loved animals, and I just really wanted to work with animals. But then when I was in college, I took a few political science classes, and I had a professor who approached me and said, "You really have a knack for this, and I think you would make a great lawyer." And so I started thinking about that. And ultimately,
this is in college.
It's in college, yes.
Okay.
And so ultimately, I followed that career path based upon his recommendation. He saw something to me that I didn't see.
So when you're in college, are there any lawyers in your family?
No.
So so you just figured. So that's when you decided in college to become an attorney.
Right.
Where did you go to school then?
I went to the Dickinson School of Law. I received a scholarship, and it was a very prestigious school, the oldest law school in Pennsylvania, and I was very, very pleased to get a scholarship to that school.
Was there any particular phase in law that you wanted to, you know, really go into, excel in?
Yes, I actually was very enthusiastic about environmental law, which was kind of new back in the 80s when I was in law school, and I pursued a course of studies that included a lot of environmental law courses.
So did you go into that direction?
I did not.
Oh, why?
No.
What happened?
No, I graduated.
You haven't changing your mind a little bit.
I know, just a little bit. I actually was offered a position in central Pennsylvania with a small boutique law firm that did insurance defense litigation across the entire state. And I just thought that sounded really interesting. I wanted to be a courtroom attorney, and so that gave me the opportunity to hit the ground running. And a lot of my friends wanted to go to the big city and start in one of the big firms. And I actually had done more courtroom work in the first several years, and they never even set foot inside of a courtroom. So it was a great incubator for me to go to this firm.
What'd you learn so far? What'd you learn about when you were doing?
Well, because I went to so many different counties and I had trials and court proceedings in probably over 26 counties in Pennsylvania at that point, I saw a lot of really well-run courtrooms, and then I saw some courtrooms that weren't very well-run. So obviously, every judge has a different personality, so I got to know a lot about the judicial system and how there could be nuances in different counties, and I also was able to practice law against a lot of different attorneys from many different walks of life, both city firms and local firms.
You know, I debated in King's College, and I found debating very, very intriguing and interesting, because what you do is you gain a knowledge of the pro, and you do as much studying as you can, and then of course the next month you're a negative, you're on the other side.
Right.
And once you get to know both sides and study both sides, then I think you can make a valued decision. Okay.
Yes.
I think as an attorney, I know many attorneys. My neighbor's an attorney, and I have a lot of respect for them. I really do. I know we have a lot of jokes about attorneys and et cetera. Look, you remember you said you went to some courtrooms, they were running good, and then some were running bad. Well, we have some attorneys who are really bad,
right.
Okay, and give the good attorneys a bad reputation. And I'm sure those good attorneys wish they weren't around, okay.
Right.
But so I started the show off saying that it's important to know the background of the person, okay. Now, knowing a person is one thing. Like when Paula says, she's from our area, she's a nice person, I take Paula's word because she knows how to value people. But if I didn't know you, okay, I would want to know about you, okay? So that's why I'm asking these questions. So why then, how did you become district attorney? Or why did you run for district attorney?
That's a very good question. So what happened was I was in private practice for many years doing my courtroom work across the state, and I loved it. And a new district attorney was elected in Columbia County, which was a neighboring county. And they asked me if I would fulfill the position of an assistant district attorney on a special grant position. And this position was important because it was going to be the person who authored the very first child abuse protocol for Columbia County and trained all of law enforcement and prosecutors on how to minimize trauma to children in the legal system. So I accepted that position, and I worked for 3 years doing child abuse prosecution and other prosecutions, and I loved it. And I really felt like I was giving back and I was doing something important. And so then when I went back to private practice and had my own firm for over 10 years, I was enjoying doing the courtroom work again, but there was just something missing. And then
You had your own firm?
I did for over 10 years, yes. Built it from scratch.
Okay.
It had a really good practice. But then, unfortunately, I had a tragedy in my family. I lost my father and my brother. They were victims of a double homicide by vehicle. And the person
Sorry to hear
who,
that.
thank you, obviously a very difficult time
my
for
God.
me and
I
my
can't even
family.
imagine.
Yeah. So the person who killed them was not going to be charged because she knew people.
Seriously?
And, seriously, yes. And so my family and I experienced a denial of justice. And you can imagine that's difficult for anybody. But having been an assistant district attorney, working as a prosecutor, and having been an attorney for so many years, I just couldn't comprehend that the justice system that I knew didn't work the way that it was supposed to. So ultimately, the woman was charged. I was very persistent. I knew the law. I went to the DA constantly. She was charged and she pleaded guilty to 2 counts of homicide by vehicle. And my family finally had justice and we had closure. But that made me think, how many people does this happen to? Probably a lot more than we know.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can't
Yeah.
let this happen.
Yeah.
God has given me talents and abilities, and I need to use them to help others. And shortly after that, I was asked to run for district attorney in Montour County because the DA who was in office was retiring.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I ran, and I won with 78% of the vote in it was a contested election. And I love my time as DA, and I instituted robust victim rights programs. I worked closely with the Temple Institute of Protective Services so that elderly people in our community could have justice when they were being either physically or financially abused. And I also created a multidisciplinary investigative team. It's a long word, but the MDIT team was to minimize trauma to child victims. So I basically instituted a child abuse protocol in Montour County as well.
So Rebecca, as you were going up the ladder, so to speak, and as you were doing, what you were doing, and I usually ask people, do we have a passion? I don't even have to ask you that. I know you have the passion, way beyond the passion. But unfortunately in life, there are people who do not like to see other people get ahead. You have envy, you have jealousy, and you have corruption, and you have agendas, and And as I say, society pays the price for that.
Right.
Okay. And some people who are not affected say, well, it doesn't make it, like, for example, Superior Court. Why is that important? We'll talk about that in a minute. But so when you were going through that, I mean, I went through it here when we were doing our TV, and I'm not crying or something, but I mean, people wanted to see me fall on my face because who the hell is he from Partysville? You know, I was called a crap dog picker, you know, everything under the book. They wanted to see me fail, okay? But I wanted to serve the people in this area, particularly seniors who do not have a voice, okay? And I'm not a saint by no means, but I say this for a reason. As you were going up, being young and doing your job, did you encounter any of those people that try to destroy you?
Absolutely, but you know what, Sam, as I'm sure you've experienced as well, you don't let them stop you. You do the right thing.
Yeah.
You just keep doing the right thing.
Well, and you did,
Right.
okay, and I think I did, and I'm blessed. But you said something that you felt that God gave you a talent because of what you went through, okay? And I say that on my show many times, okay? I don't know what it is, okay? Some people love me, hate me, but the point is, I think God gives us a talent to do something, to do good. Now, you did a lot of good.
Right, but I hope to do more.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm going to get to the point is, so you ran for DA, okay,
Right.
and you won by 7. That's impressive. That's
That was
impressive.
gratifying.
Yeah. Why did you not run for re-election then?
I could have, and I probably would have easily won re-election, but I was approached and asked to run for Supreme Court the year that I would have run for re-election. And I prayed about it, and I thought, you know, for some reason, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. So I ran in 2015, and that's when Judge Stevens was running as well. And unfortunately, no one on the Republican ticket won that year. But it was a great experience, and it laid the groundwork for my run this year. So now I know a lot of people across the state, and I have a good grassroots organization. So that was very helpful.
So we're going to talk about the Superior Court, okay? And of course, I know Corey Stevens very well, and he, as I said, he does a very good job with the show. He explains the different cases, okay? Folks, I'm talking to Rebecca Warren. She's running for Superior Court in the state of Pennsylvania on the Republican ticket. Remember what I said, get to know who the people are. It's very important. And then you decide, based on qualifications, whether you should vote for that person. We'll get back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. 24/7, ssptv.com. Watch all of our programs. All original programming, 21 growing all original programming. I want to thank the viewers for choosing our show, Sam Lesante Show, as the #1 talk show in northeastern Pennsylvania. I appreciate it very much. Remember, Comcast 190 in Pottsville from 7 to 11 p.m. every night. Wilkes-Barre area, Service Electric Communications, Channel 92, Saturdays and Sunday evenings from 7 to 11. And of course, in the Lackawanna Accountants, Granton area, Comcast 190, Saturday and Sunday mornings from 8 to 11. And I'd like to say hello to all my friends in the Scranton area who are watching us on Sunday mornings. My guest today is Rebecca Warren. She's running for Superior Court Judge, local candidate, and was a former district attorney. Been practicing for 27 years. I know when you look at her, you can't tell it's 27 years. Rebecca, so 27 years of experience, all right?
Yes.
So when you decided, when they asked you to run for Superior Court, what was the reason why did you think you wanted to be a Supreme Court judge?
Well, as I said, it's very important to me that there be justice in our system and also integrity. And at the time that there were 3 positions open in 2015, it was because there was a lack of integrity in the justice system at that point. A lot of the justices had been removed for impropriety, and I just felt that I needed to help restore integrity in any way that I could. And so when I was approached and asked to run, I thought this is a good opportunity, and it's something that I feel is in my wheelhouse.
Superior Court Judge, okay?
Yes.
Why is that position so important to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
So the Superior Court is really the court of last resort for most parties in Pennsylvania. When you go to your local county court, if you're a litigant and you don't get an outcome that you like, you can automatically appeal it to the Superior Court. and the Superior Court has to hear it. Now, there are a few types of cases that go to their sister court, which is the Commonwealth Court. That would be like election law cases, governmental agencies, real estate, but most cases are heard by the Superior Court. And their decision is usually final because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which is the highest court in Pennsylvania, gets to pick and choose its cases. So really 90% plus are final in the Superior Court.
So it's for that person who is affected by the law, okay, and like you said, with your brother and father, in homicide, the law wasn't working the way it should have.
Right.
So then you finally were able to get the right decision, which was justified. And so what happens with us is residents, citizens in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, is that if we feel we did not get anything, so at least we have an opportunity to go into the Superior Court. Now there's where we need qualified people, no matter the district attorney, no matter who's running for office. But when you're talking about life-altering, decisions, how do you look at cases when you were a DA? I mean, like, what were some of the things you need to do to get, to make a valued decision, a truthful decision, and be able to go to sleep at night and get up in the morning and look at yourself, okay? Unfortunately, we have a lot of people who don't care what they look like, and they still do the wrong things.
Right. Well, I think it's important that the person really know and understand the law, and in some situations, the Constitution, which would apply. And you need to look at the facts of each case and then make sure that they're consistent with the law and the Constitution. So when I was the DA, the police were the ones who determined whether or not charges should be filed in most of the cases. Now, sometimes they would come to me and ask because it was a difficult situation and they needed some guidance. But I always just made sure that when the charges were filed, that the facts and the crime fit the law.
Sort of with a district attorney, or maybe with even a judge, it's like a two-edged sword, because the politicians set the laws, okay? The legislators set the law.
Right.
And then you have to work within that law.
Right.
Okay? And so sometimes people say, well, why did the judge do this? Or why did the district attorney do? Well, that person would have loved to be able to give that person more of a sentence, but you're limited. And how is that working with, does it work the same way with the Superior Court?
Yes, absolutely. And you're correct. The law is written by the legislators, and a judge is elected by the people to apply that law.
Yeah.
Judges aren't supposed to create law. So
Could you
sometimes
tell that to the United States, the people who were in office before? Anyway, go ahead.
Right. And I also saw it, unfortunately, with the Pennsylvania Supreme Court with the gerrymandering case.
Yeah.
I was one of the attorneys representing the voters of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And we saw a Supreme Court that unfortunately just disregarded the law and did whatever they wanted. As a judge, you're not supposed to do that. So what I want people to know is that I will apply the law and the Constitution.
So where was the accountability there, then, to these Supreme Court justices that did not do their job?
Right, that's a good question, because judges are elected for 10 years, and that's a long time, and they're really not accountable to anybody. They're supposed to be nonpartisan, but I guess the only way to address something like that would be some sort of an impeachment process.
Yeah. Now, when you, being around, you made a lot of friends, okay? In both parties, Democrats,
Right.
Republican, okay? And you have to run on a party, so you're running on a Republican ticket.
Right.
So when you sit as a judge, does any bias set in?
Well, I'm sure that we all have biases,
Yeah.
but you can't allow that to control your decision. And even when I was district attorney, as you said, sometimes there are situations where you might want to have a different approach or a different outcome, but you can't. You have to act within the parameters of the law. And so I just think it's important to follow the law and the Constitution and apply that to the facts of each case without letting personal bias or opinion come
All right,
in.
so as DA, I asked this to Christine Hallman when she was the district attorney. Are there any laws that you think should be altered? Okay, because you're dealing with criminals, you're dealing with these things, you're head on. For example, if I don't know of any district attorney or anyone I've ever interviewed who is in law enforcement, when I say, should we legalize marijuana? Should we, should we do this, okay? And they give you the history of what they've seen, in their lives, and the destruction, how marijuana started one thing and went to another thing, and it all boils down sometimes to how much money can we make? Well, money is killing our society.
Right.
So legislators say, well, we would vote for this because we're going to get taxes, etc. But how much damage are you doing? I don't know. I mean, I know medical marijuana is a separate thing, okay, as far as so is there anything that you would alter if you had the chance to?
Well, as a judge, you can't do that.
No, forget about being
right.
a judge. You're a district attorney, okay, you saw that. And I have a lot of politicians come on the show, and hopefully they'll make right decisions, okay? Of course you can't satisfy everyone, but I mean, was there anything where you feel sentences should have been longer because of the crime that was, and they were limited?
Right, well, let me say this. Sometimes I felt that the sentence didn't fit the crime.
Yeah,
and it could go either way. It should have maybe been a little bit more lenient. And the one thing that we saw was, and I'm a law and order person, and I'm endorsed by the Pennsylvania State Troopers Association. People recognize me as being fair and reasonable. But I think that when they instituted mandatory sentencing, where you're not looking at the person, you're just looking at the crime, and you're imposing the sentence based on what the state guidelines are, doesn't really necessarily always fit the situation.
Yeah, it could be difficult. Rebecca Warren, folks, she's running for Superior Court judge in the state of Pennsylvania, a very important position. Hope you never have to be in front of her or whatever, but if you are, you want to make sure you have a qualified person who is going to look at this the best way they possibly can, and God-fearing people as well. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. My guest, Rebecca Warren. She is running for Superior Court Judge, a Republican ticket. Please get to know all the candidates. Rebecca, 27 years. I think one of the most important things, when I get a letter from someone who says, thank you for doing this, and I have a lot of endorsements of our shows and people who advertise, and they're very happy. I'm not making a plug, but the point is good. But when you get endorsements, I think that's impressive. So tell me some of the endorsements you received.
Okay, as I mentioned, I have the Pennsylvania State Troopers Association endorsement, the International Association of Firefighters, Local 22, which represents the firefighters and paramedics in the Philadelphia area. I have the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation, and also Firearm Owners Against Crime.
That's fantastic. So they don't come by just like that.
No, you have to go through an interview process.
And not only that, you have to, I think you have to earn that.
Right.
You have to earn the respect. What are you looking forward to as being a Superior Court judge?
Really ensuring that there's fairness and justice for everyone. I love to read, write, research, so everything that a Superior Court judge does, I like to do, so that's exciting work. And it's interesting to read through all the transcripts of testimony and see all the evidence in cases and determine whether or not the lower court properly applied the law. I like doing that type of work.
Trained eye sometimes is important.
Right.
Well, Rebecca, that's your camera.
Okay.
People are watching and they're looking at Rebecca Warren, who's running for Superior Court on a Republican ticket. Tell them why they should vote for you.
Okay, sure. So on May 21st, I would appreciate your vote because I believe that I am the most highly qualified candidate who's running with over 27 years of experience in both civil and criminal law, which is the types of law that the Superior Court hears. And I also think it's important to know personal motivation. And my motivation is as a result of the tragedy in my family, losing my father and my brother. I want to ensure that a denial of justice does not happen to any other person if it's in my power to prevent it. I want to ensure that there's fairness and justice for everyone.
It's interesting when you're saying fairness and justice, and we were talking a little bit about endorsements and being around sometimes, and you're talking to people who are in politics, and it goes back to, well, we got to get the unions to do this, we got to get this group to do this, we have to do this, and that's fine. But before you do that, what about the person that they're going to endorse? Or is it a selfish motive, okay? And what happens is, and we paid a price. I mean, people out there are paying taxes like crazy. They're getting ripped off all over the areas. They don't know it because they don't, the laws and people who are in laws are creating these things. And that's why I say it's it's like so important to look at whomever the candidate may be,
Right.
okay? Certainly nice talking with you, Rebecca.
Nice talking to you.
I wish you and all the candidates who are running, I got to applaud them because it's a challenge, okay? And I wish you success. And hopefully, you have 2 children, right?
I do.
And they're both at MMI, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
You're an MMI graduate.
I am.
Then you went to Bloomsbury. Should have gone to King's College. Okay. No, it's a great school. My sister went there. Folks, remember, May 21st, please vote. I know it's sometimes you figure, well, it's only a primary. Very, very important to vote, okay? We'll see you next time.